Well, hello everybody. I'm Marilyn Hawes with Unprecedented TV this morning for my show Heart and Soul, and you can find us on YouTube. I'm also CEO of Freedom from Abuse, which is a charity seeking to prevent child abuse and actually any abuse existing in society today, of which there's far too much, as we know. So for Heart and Soul, I'm inviting anyone with a lived experience or a story to tell, any issues, and they would like maybe to be a guest on my show. If you have a situation to discuss, then please do contact Unprecedented TV and come on, and it's your show to talk about the issues. So we would together discuss issues from what basically most people want to turn away from. They choose to ignore others' reality. And I feel that these situations need oxygen, because that actually opens people's hearts, minds and soul to the reality, and maybe that just changes how they will react in the future. So basically what we're doing is kicking the elephant out of the room. So this morning I'm absolutely thrilled to have on with me this morning Julian King, who is CEO of it's called FLSS is what it's called. It's Julian, please welcome, and welcome and nice to see you.
Hello, Marilyn.
Hello, how are you?
Not bad. Thank you for inviting me.
Well, it's lovely to have you on. It's really, really lovely to have you on. So let me explain. So you were the CEO, or you are the CEO of FLSS, which is Family Law Services. But what did you do before that? How did you come to be this? And I mean, how come, what drove you to be this?
Well, I'm a retired detective, and I have actually got sort of three companies. My main one is Criminal Investigation and Paralegal Services Limited, and it works hand in hand with FLSS, which is Family Law Support Services. And I've also got a fairly new project which is called Street Safe London.
Oh, we'll have you on for another show for that.
Yes,
believe
no
me.
problem at all.
Yes, so what we're talking about today, folks, is if you're in the horrible situation where you're seeking a divorce. Can you just briefly explain what a paralegal is, Julian?
A paralegal is really somebody that helps people with their paperwork, prepares paperwork for court. You also have Mackenzie friends that can attend court with people for support and some assistance. So we cover, a pretty large range of, I suppose, tasks, within FLSS, and we usually deal with the more difficult cases. When I was in the police, I ran the Westminster Community Safety Unit. I ran a domestic abuse unit at Harrow Road, which was connected to Paddington, and I've also run a public protection unit. And so when I retired, I pretty much continued doing that work, and that's how we sort of got into the domestic abuse and the family law side of things. And I'm still very active in that. I'm very sort of frontline, and I think I'm qualified to talk about a lot of the stuff here because it's from lived experience, and that's from literally serving non-molestation orders, personally, to attending court.
Can I just ask you now, because we've got to remember that I am familiar with all this stuff, but other people may not be. Can you explain what a non-molestation order is and what was it originally intended to be used for?
A non-molestation order, put it simply, is a domestic abuse injunction. Now, interestingly, hot off the press, there's some new guidance to do with non-molestation orders, which kicks in on the 12th of this month.
Oh.
So there's some recent changes there, and it would be interesting to see, what the developments are. They've included a template for the non-molestation order, a response form from the respondent. And, and what I've noticed recently, and I think what this is also aiming at, is reducing the number of non-molestation orders, although they have mentioned coercive control in there. So it's either going to increase or decrease, because they've made it a little bit harder, to get non-molestation orders. I mean, at the moment, you'll often hear from people who will say, well, these non-molestation orders, they're given out like confetti. And it really depends on who the judge is.
Yeah. Every time.
And who's received these papers. But my concern is, I think, unfortunately, there is a bit of a scam going on, and it's been going on for a long time now. And I've obviously monitored it. I've dealt with various, organisations, and these non-molestation orders are being pushed rather than the police actually dealing with.
Yeah. Because what is the difference, though, to clear my mind? I mean, I have been down this route, but it was many, many years ago, so things have changed. But what is, how does a civil injunction then, because you mentioned about injunctions, how does that differ from the criminal justice protections like arrest or bail conditions? What's the difference?
Basically, it's a civil order, which means that if it's breached, it's not a police matter. The applicant would have to go back to the family court to report that the order has been breached. It's long-winded, can be expensive, and usually very little happens. Whereas if you get the police to deal with it, one, it's free. Two, the person can be arrested straight away. Three, they can put bail conditions on straight away and give you quite a bit of breathing space whilst the police conduct their investigations. Right. Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I have a real sort of horror with some of this stuff that I've spoken to. I can actually tell you something quite funny here. Well, it's not funny, it's actually dreadful, but you probably may witness. I go out on ride outs with the police, right? I love doing that. And we went to a domestic abuse case only 18 months ago. And we got there, and this lady said she thought she was being gaslighted, right? Now, you're only talking of 18 months ago. And I was sat there watching, and the police officer who'd been, immediate fast response, been in the police for 15 years, literally said to this lady, "Oh, have you had your boiler checked?" And that gaslighting. I mean, excuse me, I had to take him out of the room and explain it. So I am still concerned of the lack of training and appropriate training that the police officers have had. And I think it's like really a lottery, because why are police, when someone has like bashed somebody up, which is a crime of assault, why are they increasingly referring victims to organisations to obtain an injunction instead of arresting?
I mean, you're quite right about the training. Coercive control has been in over 10 years.
Yeah.
And police officers still don't know how to deal with it. I've got a case in Croydon, in London at the moment, where we've had 3 trainee detective constables that have been involved. A detective sergeant that really also doesn't have a clue. They've come in under this new system of training where you, it's a degree entry system. So whereas previously it would probably take you 5 years to get into the CID, you'd need to be able to gather a lot of evidence and show a lot of arrests and successful court cases, whereas now you can become what I call an instant detective. So you become a trainee detective constable. You don't go into uniform. You'll have probably a couple of months in uniform just to familiarise yourself, and then you'll be put into a CID office, and worryingly now they're going straight into domestic abuse units. And they're called community safety units now, but effectively, it's a domestic abuse unit in London. So I'm assisting a client there. But going back to what you were saying about why people are going for these non-molestation orders is a domestic abuse industry.
Right.
And what I mean by that is that everyone is making money out of the situation, and the only person that really ends up losing out because of the present system is usually the victim.
Always.
So what happens is I'll give you an example of two organisations, an old one and a new one. And they're literally going down the same path. The new one is trying to follow what the old one has done. So the historical one, which is still going, is NCDV, National Centre for Domestic Violence. And then the newest sort of kid on the block is called Domestic Abuse Alliance. Now, what they do is they will target police forces. NCDV will say, right, we'll come and give your officers free domestic abuse training. So, of course, the police will go, thank you very much. Yes, come along. So then what happens is you get a 45-minute to 1 hour pitch on civil injunctions and referring people to their service. So business cards, stickers, posters, So what happens is if a police officer gets called to a domestic, the easiest thing to do is to give them a card. These people will help you because it will save the officer doing any work.
Yes.
He won't have to do any investigation. He won't have to arrest anyone, and he can then go on to another case. And this is now happening again with this new organisation, sort of Domestic Abuse Alliance. Both of the organisations have come up with gimmicks, and one of them is a referral service where you have an app on your phone, and where you can refer people or refer yourself. Police officers can have an app and they can get instant access to see that there's a non-molestation order in place, if they're called to an address. However, these are gimmicks because all a police officer has to do is call his control room and it will be recorded on the police national computer. Okay, so they will have details of the injunction straight away. So these things, I call them gimmicks. Then I suppose an even worse part is the process that they use in terms of serving the non-molestation orders. If we go back to NCDV, by the way, both these organisations I've spoken to personally, so anything I'm saying won't be, a surprise, okay? Because I think it's important that everyone in an organisation knows other parts of the organisation, the process. So what actually happens when somebody comes in, you refer them, for a non-molestation order, to what actually happens, when it's served and after that. So 5 years ago, I raised a scam with the Legal Aid Agency and the NCDV because in the same way that Domestic Abuse Alliance are now going down the same route, NCDV had their own process serving company as part of their organisation. Now, what they were doing is anybody can be a process server. They don't have their own process servers. So they're private contractors. So you can email and say, can I go on your list? You only have to be over 16 years of age. don't need any experience. So what was happening was NCDV, in fact, from a recent Freedom of Information request that I did to the Legal Aid Agency just about a month or so ago, the system hasn't changed. So what happened was the NCDV were paying process servers £60 now as a fixed fee. Now, for that £60, what the process server, what would happen is they would email all the papers, and including confidential, witness statements, etc., to the process server. He would print them off. Then he would have to try and serve these papers on 3 separate occasions at different times, on 3 different days. His mileage would all be included within that fee. There's no additional time paid. So consequently, you would find that some process servers weren't making a proper attempt to serve, so they might just try on one occasion and then say we were unable to serve the papers, because they will still get their £60 fee whether the papers are served or not. Now, so the scam part of that was that the process serving part of the company would be billing the Legal Aid Agency for serving the papers, but what they would be doing would be including the number of miles that the process server was doing, the number of hours, because process servers will be paid £25.60 an hour by the Legal Aid Agency, so it would be ramped up to, it's usually around the £200 mark. Yeah, so what would happen was they would get that money, process server would just get the £60, and there wasn't really much of an incentive to serve the papers properly. So other companies, in addition to myself, raised concerns about this to the Legal Aid Agency, because effectively it was a fraud. So the next thing that happened was the company closed down, and NCDV made an agreement with the Legal Aid Agency that they would, Legal Aid Agency would just pay them £100 fixed fee. And that is still in place to this day. So for the last 5 years. So the process server would get £60 and the NCDV would get £40. Now this I think was done to prevent a bit of a scandal and a lot of work in actually trying to investigate this fraud. So NCDV still got some business, and the Legal Aid Agency were winning as well, because they've only got to pay £100 instead of £200, say, for a service. So that is still going on to this day. And
Julian, may I just, as
yes.
you mentioned Legal Aid, before I lose it from my brain,
yes,
what, because as you're talking about it, and I think some of the laws for legal aid have changed, haven't they? Who gets it, who doesn't get it? But what role does legal aid eligibility play in encouraging allegations rather than investigations?
I think it's pretty common knowledge now, but one of the issues is that in order to get legal aid for a family court matter, etc., a person would have to say they're a victim of domestic abuse. Once you say that, then you get your case funded. Now, that's a bit of an unfair situation, and we do have solicitors and advisors encouraging people in family court matters where there are children involved, because they want to either stop one party seeing their children, or they want to make child arrangements. One party is going to be unfunded, usually unrepresented, whilst the other one will have a solicitor and a barrister paid for. So that is another issue. But if you mind, can I just go back quickly to to the process serving side of things.
Sorry.
Because what I want to show you as an example, there's a with Domestic Abuse Alliance, it's one company but seems to be covering three things. They call themselves We Protect, which is their sort of referral service, in the same way we're talking about the app, and also We Process. So they're also a process serving service. So it's not just for domestic abuse matters. They serve, statutory demands, any sort of civil set of papers, And what I found is domestic abuse seems to be a hook. So it's a good way of advertising, your organisation. And this, I follow this on LinkedIn because they advertise themselves constantly on LinkedIn, and there seems to be a competition between them all. Oh, here's a testimonial and this, that, and the other. And the latest thing with Domestic Abuse Alliance and We Process, everything has gone technical now. You don't even have to speak to anyone. Here's our app. Just contact us on that and we'll go and serve your papers. So we did a bit of research. In fact, I even used the company to serve some papers, but these were civil papers as part of my criminal company. And it's laughable. That what they've done is they've treated it virtually as a courier system, for domestic abuse cases. So this is one of their contracts that they send out, to anybody who wants to be a process server with them. Now, you sign up on their app to become a process server, and then what happens is it looks very much like a courier service, like DPD or whatever, because they don't call them process servers, they call them drivers. And when you look on the portal to check everything, a picture of your driver, etc., we sent them some papers. After 3 days, we couldn't get hold of our driver, and I sent an email to the company. The driver wasn't answering any of the messages, and the next thing I know is there's a new driver that's been allocated. So then we go a little bit further and we start looking at this contract, and you can see why process servers, are either leaving or, they're not really wanting to, go with the flow on the terms, because they're paid less than NCDV. The base rate is £40 per serve. Performance bonus up to £10 extra per serve. Maximum pay £50 per serve. Yeah, you can also get effectively fined, if you don't do things, on time. £5 deduction, for getting some errors, wrong in names, addresses, etc. £5 deduction if there's a missing sort of photograph. Unresponsive to urgent requests, £5 deduction. And they've got a strike system where they won't give you work for sort of 3 months until, your performance is better. And this is an absolute nonsense, because what you're doing is you're sending somebody round to serve a non-molestation order. And I know from one case, one of the drivers is travelling from Luton to Bournemouth, for a £40 fee. Now how can that be? They can only do that if they've got a large number of them, and they're a bit like delivering parcels. They work out which route they're going to do to drop off various court papers. And remember, they're not all domestic abuse injunctions. No. So on one hand, it might make it easier for firms of solicitors, or I can just, arrange to have these papers, and I can email the papers to the company, and they can email them to one of their drivers. But for a domestic abuse case, I think it's it's dangerous,
Yeah.
to put it mildly, because what if they can't find the person?
Yes.
Are they going to go back to Luton? Are they going to, how many times are they going to be able to do that for £40? And also, and I find this with NCDV as well. These process servers that they've got are just delivering papers. Effectively, with civil cases, you can actually send things in the post. They actually need a process server for some things, but for domestic abuse matters, you've got to do a lot more. And I find that both these companies, from my dealings with them, were failing in this respect, because what you should be doing is, when you deliver that non-molestation order, you should be making sure that you've got the right person.
Absolutely.
First thing. And two, you need to be reading out all those conditions that the respondent is supposed to stick to. So he's not supposed to contact directly, indirectly. He's not supposed to do this, that, and the other. Now, they're not being told this. They've just been given a brown envelope.
So, tell me, Julian, are these organisations, are they regulated? Are they checked?
No.
See, that's appalling, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, what you've got a selection, ranging from charities to CICs to just, regular businesses. But at the end of the day, whether you're a charity or not, or a CIC, these are all businesses, and people, sometimes, forget that. So, so that is one of my sort of beefs. And the other sort of beef that I do have is the way that these non-molestation orders are pushed by these organisations, like they're a panacea. You do this, you'll be protected, etc., etc. Well, I don't want to burst anyone's bubble, but before I talk about anything, I like to do some research.
Oh yeah,
and up-to-date research. Okay, and I'll just show you just very quickly here. Well, what I did was I did some freedom of information requests to 2 local family courts, because one of my things is I believe in also being local. So I deal with Northampton and Peterborough family courts. So I'm looking at the number of applications, and I've split it into male and female. And I've got applications by female applicants over a period of time, 419. Okay, only 280 of those were approved by the court. So all those others where organisations have been pushing this rather than going to the court have actually put their clients at further risk, because what happens now is that that person's now got to go back to the police, to try and report things, try and get them to do things. Time has gone on.
And also, Julian, I do a lot with domestic abuse people as well. And, I can't remember what the book is when the police go round and they have like a little pink book thing of they ask the person,
Oh, the dash risk assessment.
That's it, the dash risk assessment. Now, I think that is, this is where it gets, I think, dangerous, because I'm pleased to see in the dash thing there is a thing about, does this person abuse the family pet? Because we know that domestic abuse and family abuse, domestic abuse, sexual abuse, animal abuse are all linked. So, and why would you abuse the family pet? Because it's all about your power and your control over the vulnerable, isn't it? And then there's this other question, isn't there, where they grade what they deem to be the risk. So you can have low risk abuse, medium risk, and high risk. And now you're going to the top end of medium risk. So say it goes 1 to 10, 10 to 20, 20 to 30. Just say that as numbers for high risk. If you are scoring at 19, you're at the top of the medium risk, but it doesn't take much. I've been in domestic abuse. It doesn't take much for the aggressor to suddenly flip and go off on you. Yes. Suddenly you're in the high risk. And
Yes.
these geezers that come out with no domestic abuse experience, and I think I'm right in saying, correct me if I'm wrong, that many of the homicides have been put down on that dash assessment by police as medium risk, and most of the high number of homicides are the medium risk ones that were high end, that were not assessed properly. Am I wrong?
Okay, let me just address three different parts of that. First thing, the issue with animals, and I must say, yeah, that's one of the things that I do have a keen interest in. And in fact, it was where I first learned of Domestic Abuse Alliance, because I attended the Parliament when there was an APPG regarding
what's an APPG?
It's a parliamentary group that deals with different aspects.
Mm-hmm.
And this one was set up by Christine Warner, who's a barrister, and it's to do with Ruby's Law, and it's basically to show that pets are victims as well. Mm-hmm. And this is when I first saw a banner to do with Domestic Abuse Alliance, you see. So I actually, this is how I actually got involved and contacted Domestic Abuse Alliance also to find out, because I'm quite keen on being able to refer people as well to people that I'm confident with, that can do things quickly, and in the right way. But anyway, so just moving on, I just thought I'd say that, as a side, it's a really good initiative, and I support it. However, following my sort of research, I did inform, a person sort of running, the APPG, that I couldn't really support them at the moment if they were supporting, Domestic Abuse Alliance, and it's on all their websites and stuff. So anyway, quickly about the dash risk assessments. Remember what I said about domestic abuse industry? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, that's another thing. Somebody's prepared that previously. Okay. Now there's people challenging it. There's other things going on. Okay. So in terms of the police side of things, I can tell you, what goes on there, because obviously, I've been part of it, and I still challenge them now regarding aspects of the risk assessment. Now, what usually happens is, and it's worse now that we've got the instant detectives without any domestic abuse experience, is what happens is that you'll probably get, a really good police officer, who says, right, this is high risk. I've been there, I've spoken to them, I've done this, I've done that. And it will be referred to the domestic abuse unit. The domestic abuse unit quite often change the grading down to medium so that they don't have to deal with it. And it goes back to the uniform officer to deal with. Now, that uniform officer is running about on blue lights, dealing with, 101 other cases. He doesn't have the time to deal with something like that, especially if it includes, coercive control. If you dealt with a coercive control case properly, it's like doing a mini sort of major investigation, So, yeah, I understand what you're saying about risk assessments, and, there are, issues, with that. And I do think that more notice needs to be taken of experienced officers that are going out and coming back and saying this is definitely high risk. If we don't do something,
absolutely, because so many, there's a thing, isn't there, 1 in 50 women or something, there's some statistics about it, and so many of them are beautiful women that have been to the police so many times, but can you go, why are there so few victim testimonials from those using domestic abuse organizations compared to police or organizations promoting the organizations?
Because they get a rubbish service at the end of the day. They feel as though they've wasted their time, and they end up suffering sort of more trauma.
Yeah.
rather than trying to get the case dealt with properly the first time. And I look at some of these testimonials just in the last couple of days. There seems to be this competition between NCDV and Domestic Abuse Alliance at the minute with putting up testimonials, but they're all from organisations or police officers that have just referred people to the organisation. And Domestic Abuse Alliance recently, they've just published another testimonial, which seems to be a repeat. And again, it's from somebody that, has referred a case. They've used a stock image, of the person. It's not them. And they said, oh, they've changed the name of the person, etc., etc. But again, this is not a domestic abuse victim. There's no need to change the name of a person if they're working for an organisation and actually referring people. So it all seems a little bit odd. But anyway, going back to the risk assessment, now this is very important in relation to what I just said previously about serving the non-molestation order papers properly, okay, and informing that person what they're not supposed to do and making sure everything's done properly. Because you mentioned domestic homicide reviews, and some of these organisations will know about this, but there are domestic homicides that have raised serious concerns about the service of these non-molestation orders, okay, and which may have contributed, to the actual homicide. I think I've also got recently, in Leicester. This is what I call another one of the scams, where even once you've managed to get to court to apply for a non-molestation order, the judge, the two barristers, it's like a club, basically.
Yeah, 100%.
They don't want to spend a whole day hearing your case to give you a non-molestation order, even though they're paid for it. So what they do amongst themselves, and if a barrister says something to you, you're going to follow that advice because you think that's the right thing to do, okay? And quite often they don't give the right advice. And this is one particular occasion, because what they will do is say, okay, well, instead of proceeding with the non-molestation order, why don't we just do what's known as cross undertakings? So you both agree to not harass each other, okay? And you're saying, well, hang on a second, I'm the applicant, I haven't harassed anyone. But this is one of the things that happens, and you've got to remember, an applicant, a victim, is nervous as hell, and they're going to go for it, especially if there's judges also, suggesting this. So what happens is, in a future case, whether it be child arrangements, whatever, it could be used against you. Because they say, well, hang on, you must have been at fault because you've agreed not to do something to the other party. So that's one thing. Secondly, what's happened with the Leicester case is they did exactly the same thing, and the respondent stroke perpetrator killed the victim. Okay, so this all came out in a domestic homicide review. So my advice is never accept undertakings in a domestic abuse case. Simple as that. One, it's dangerous, and two, it will be used against you in the future at some stage.
Frightening, isn't it? It's absolutely frightening. Yeah. Do you ever, or have you involved yourself with? I mean, I'm known to Nicole Jacobs, the domestic abuse commissioner. Is she aware of all this stuff going on, or does that not cross her desk?
Look, the trouble with these things, and it's why I often, don't get involved with a lot of these relationships and functions, etc. There's a lot of back scratching going on, so, including with the police, and what I want to see is less of this, sucking up to each other, and those domestic abuse organisations actually changing the police and saying, why haven't you arrested this person who's breached their non-molestation order? Because while we're on that point, I also did 2 freedom of information requests, one to Cambridgeshire Police and one to Northamptonshire Police. And the result of those shows that there are numerous breaches of non-molestation orders. Very few are actually charged. And interestingly, with Cambridgeshire, I had a little bit of difficulty with those because they were unable to give me figures relating to how many reports had been made via 101 and 999 regarding a suspect's breaching a non-molestation order, because they say that their system doesn't record that. Northamptonshire does. So it will be a domestic abuse flag and that's it. Okay.
Yeah, and again, it's a lottery, you see, isn't it? Because I do get involved with a lot of cases where people are so distressed, and I mean, the anxiety in some of the calls that I get, and I don't get paid for it. I'm actually, my charity is actually training people to prevent abuse, but I get involved with so much stuff. You do a lot of stuff on media and you're just inundated with people that have got problems that can't sort stuff out because they're a bunch of numpties, a lot of them, quite frankly. I mean, it's just absolutely awful.
Yes, I mean, we have a proactive section as well. So if we get to a stage where the police are continuing to be pretty useless, because what you find these days, there's no attempt to resolve issues. It's just defence, and nothing happens. So what we do now, if necessary, if the police are not going to arrest someone for breaching a non-molestation order, we will. And we do it under Section 24A of the Police and Criminal Evidence Act. It's an indictable offence, and we'll prepare a little package, and then we'll give it to the police, and it ties their hands then. Because you've got to think. Quite often, a lot of these people, you know, are narcissists, and
but they are. That's part of
and they will want
charm, isn't it?
And they want to, you know, look for any loophole.
Yes,
you know, they may drive past, you know, a victim's house, okay, to get them a bit worried that, oh, I'm not worried about you know, your injunction. Now, they will ring the police, and what can they do? You know, they can, okay, we'll log it, you know. They may not have any CCTV evidence to back up what they're saying. Yeah. So we will help them with that, even sometimes with video evidence. So in other words, we can put, you know, a vehicle in with video running, and we can video the suspect perhaps doing what he's supposed to be doing, or being somewhere that he shouldn't, and then we'll hand that to the police. You know, so they've got, you know, some evidence. So you know, it is a worry. I don't like this domestic abuse sort of industry and all the back scratching that goes on, especially with the police. The first thing you should be doing if you're a domestic abuse organisation is making sure that the police deal with it.
Well, absolutely, but trying to get that to happen is horrendous. I mean, I could pull my hair out the number of times. But what I've been doing, because as you say, things aren't logged, I now actually go through the actual website and I make the complaint on the website, because as somebody who was a retired detective said to me, that has to be looked at. Whereas if you phone it in, it might not get logged properly, and which I think also it's absolutely outrageous. But can you answer this one? Are there significant differences between male and female victims applying for non-molestation orders? I mean, I think men hold back. They're more dubious of coming forward, and I'm wondering. I still think there's far more men in the domestic abuse situation than are coming forward. So what does that look like in terms of non-molestation orders?
Well, I've included it in that, and obviously there are a lot less applications, but there are also, if you look at it percentage-wise, a lot less of those applications are approved for a non-molestation order.
If they're men?
Yes.
Good Lord. I mean, now that is atrocious, because I was with a barrister a couple of years ago, and I saw, he showed me this photo, and what, you know, this woman was going to be in court, and, you know, and I thought, wow, she's stunning. Great. I mean, what has she done? I mean, she was about 5'2", really attractive, long blonde hair, blah, blah, blah. And, well, yes, nice lady. She just stuffed her husband through the plate glass window, and he's been in intensive care for the last 2 weeks. She didn't look like she could throw a pack of butter. But, of course, once the narcissist, which they all are, I had the same situation with my ex-husband. Once you tread on their toes and you're the wrong end of the narcissist, you're the wrong end of the shark, and you get bitten. And that I mean, and I know for my own godson has his wife pushed him through mirrors and all sorts of things in the house. So would you say, because I find this interesting as well, would you say with the cases that you've done, do women abuse differently domestically to men, or is it just pretty much the same? I've got my own thoughts on it, but I'm just wondering about what you found.
They will do exactly the same as the men. They, as I say, one of the issues that we come across now, like I said, you know, the training system, the police is not good. It is, and also, you've got very little experience now, because so many people are, you know, leaving the police, so they're being replaced, and it's very, very easy to manipulate a police officer.
Well, I think also, I shouldn't say this about my own gender, should I? But women, we can manipulate. Oh, shock, horror. But I think if you are an abusive woman, I've seen it myself in family courts and things, that, you know, they can schmooze the social worker. Oh, poor me, woe is me, and flutter their eyelashes and look absolutely, you know, believable and plausible. But that is the nature of an abuser, isn't it? They are narcissistic, they are manipulative, they are plausible liars, whether you are sexually abusing someone, domestically abusing someone. And I don't think people realize that sexual abuse does meld and join with domestic abuse. People, I mean, I know I didn't see it when I was going through a divorce, but it does link. Excuse me.
Yeah, I mean, I have seen cases where, well, more often than not, the police sometimes will arrest the wrong partner, and I've had female victims arrested as suspects, because the male partner is quite good at manipulating the police. Absolutely. But also he's pushed that lady too far. And of course, when the police come round, she's the one that's more agitated and, you know, you know, has lost the plot a bit. They don't really know how to talk to people these days. So, you know, the easiest way to deal with it, oh, well, you know, we'll arrest her and we'll make her the primary offender without conducting, you know, an investigation. So, yeah, you know, I think only time will tell if we can, you know, try and improve things for the future. But as I say, it's not looking good at the moment.
No, absolutely not. In fact, I think it's looking worse, because the recruiting of police officers seems to be like, well, I don't know. I mean, it's just appalling. I mean, we've seen something recently, haven't we? That Met police officer that was, you know, because of diversity, he had most shocking allegations and crimes against him. But there was, you know, because he was black, he was therefore ticked the box of diversity, which is awful. I mean, but what should change? What do you think should change immediately in how police respond to domestic abuse? Like immediately, if you had your choice, what would it be?
Well, I think you should just have a domestic abuse unit, and every single case goes to them. They deal with every single domestic abuse case. Also, so one of the concerns I have regarding, you know, the training, lack of supervision these days is that you are actually having a lot of police officers who are taking advantage of vulnerable victims of
Yes.
domestic abuse.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing that a lot more now than it used to be.
Can I also interject here,
yes.
because we're coming up to time, Julian, and I want to get
Yes.
2 more questions out of you. One is, you must have seen this, I'm sure, because I have, is that if it is a police officer who is the domestic abuser, what's the percentage that is not reported through the system?
Quite a lot, because what they do try and do is suppress any crime reports against police officers. So
Yeah.
they won't actually record a crime report, and they get round it by saying, oh, we've recorded it on our standalone system in the professional standards department, which no one else can really access, you know, to get stats.
And then
yeah.
we wonder why we don't trust the police.
Yeah.
It's been very, very informative. So I would like to ask another question. I want to ask you one, which would be, if one thing you could change tomorrow, what would it be? But I want that to be the last one. But what I would like to say is, for people watching this, so I am now saying I'm going to get divorced, and I'm now, you know, I've seen all these things like, oh, Domestic Abuse Alliance on Google, I must go to them. What would be just give 3 pointers for someone who's going through a divorce, what they should do and not do? What's the 3 things? I'm going to get divorced today and I'm going to a lawyer. What should I be looking to help myself immediately?
I'll just focus on sort of the domestic abuse side of things.
Yeah.
There will be financial abuse and all the rest of it.
Yeah, just the domestic one.
First thing is go and report it to the police, irrespective of whether they deal with it or not. Reason being, a lot of these non-molestation order applications are being turned down by judges because they're looking at it sensibly sometimes to say, well, have you been to the police? And if you're saying it's so serious, they say, well, why haven't you gone and reported it to the police? So start with them. Now, if they investigate your case, sometimes, you know, investigation could take several months, but they will give you a heads up towards the end of that time whether the suspect is going to be charged or not, or release no further action. Now, that is the time when you apply for a non-molestation order to cover you for when the bail conditions no longer exist.
Right.
But also, find out who's serving your process, your non-molestation order on the perpetrator. Who is it? How much are they getting paid, if necessary? You know, because it might be, well, hey, you know, they're only paying £40 or NCDV are paying £60. Is it okay if I find my own process server just to serve the papers for me? Okay, because if you don't do it right the first time, you know, you're at risk. That's the bottom line. And even though, you know, these are domestic abuse organisations and we're supposed to be putting the victim, you know, at the heart of everything, the bottom line is it's a business. A lot of people have other businesses as a spin-off from this, you know, such as, you know, going around to businesses and talking about domestic abuse, you know, in the workplaces, or coercive control consultants. Yeah, there are so many all over the place. So every I mean, when I went to the APPG to do with Ruby's Law and pets, next thing is NCDV and Domestic Abuse Alliance are all, you know, promoting this Ruby's Law, blah blah blah, domestic abuse, and help you. Let us serve your non-molestation order, the panacea that will protect you from everything.
So I think the thing also as well, which actually it isn't a joke, it shouldn't be a joke, it's actually deadly serious. But if anything is less what they actually do, is the mantra of the family court should be and is, and yet, oh my word, it fails nearly every time.
Yes.
I quote, "The voice of the child must be heard." When does that ever happen? Oh, no, no, no. But one more thing then before we go, because you've been amazing. If you could change one thing tomorrow to improve victim safety, what would it be?
Right. Well,
You've only got 2 minutes.
Okay. Right, I would say get rid of all these national domestic abuse organisations, keep it local, have your local police force have their own contacts with their own domestic abuse organisation locally. You have local solicitors deal with your family law cases, and you have local process servers who can go around straight away and serve papers. And also, if the chap breaches, the non-molestation order, the same process server will, recognise the face and be able to, grab him if necessary at some stage.
Yeah, that's good advice. Julian, thank you. Thank you. You are a wealth of information. And I'm hoping that, because once you go down this divorce route, it's a quagmire of stuff. It's like walking through treacle. So I really do hope that people tune into this. I thank people that are online listening and that will be going on, because we keep these recordings in our archives and people can access it at any time. You've been amazing. Thank you so much. We are going to get you on again. I am having you on again, please, to talk about what's going on down in Westminster. So once we come off this show, we'll get another date in the diary, Julian. Thank you so much for your time and for everything you're doing to keep people like me some many years ago safe. And I really thank you for that, because having been in that situation, it is terrifying. And I walked out with 4 children and made myself homeless. Frightening. And I would have loved somebody like you at that time. And it's like walking through fog. So a million thanks for what you're doing. God bless. And anybody listening to this, there is hope. We always like to end on hope, and the hope is Julian King. So thank you very much for everybody listening. And next week we are having the chairman of Mankind, the only domestic abuse charity for men who are in domestic abuse. So that's our next week one. And thank you so much for listening, and have a good day, whatever you're doing, and see you later. Thank you.